Hello, this is Unsung with GameLeap, and today we're going to be talking about the quick gameplay thoughts that Riot has just released. What makes this article so important is that it's laying the groundwork for what we should expect over the course of the next year in League of Legends. In short, mythic items are being removed, item stacking is being brought back to some extent, and your champion should matter more than your items. If you want tips and tricks for any champion at all, then head over to GameLeap.com by clicking on the description box below to access our courses. I have personally uploaded guides and tips videos for every champion in the game. Go use them to your advantage. Now let's go ahead and talk about the first topic, mythics and subclass support as a whole. The gist of this section is that there are too few mythic items to meet the needs of most champion subclasses. Half of the total roster works well with mythics, while the other half of champions need different options. A great example of this is Irelia. None of the current mythics feel good to play on Irelia because they largely do not synergize with her kit. This leaves her tied heavily to Blade of the Ruined King, which makes her into a Bork applicator instead of Irelia. Riot in theory could solve this by creating a bunch of mythic items to suit the needs of champions like Irelia, but they say it would make the game too complex and difficult to learn. As a longtime player, I personally kind of disagree with this take. The complexity of League is what makes it so fun and replayable. We had a lot more items in the past, which led to a diverse amount of builds for champions and unique playstyles because of that. The introduction of mythics homogenized this experience largely and made the meta significantly more cookie-cutter and less expressive for the player. This is just my personal opinion, but I'd love to hear yours. Make sure to comment down below so we can talk about it. Our second topic of the video is the mythic goals and design debt. The goal of mythic items was to make them more exciting, similar to getting an item in an MMO or an ARPG. Mobility was limited by your champion's kit until Gale Force, Prowlers with a Dash, and Stridebreaker were added to the game. Big heals and hard CC were also not present in the kit of every champion. Mythics were introduced to alleviate this terribly restricting problem. The example given here is that Zhonya's Hourglass makes Morgana and Fiddlesticks feel significantly better to play. The problem with this example is that it's true, because it removes counterplay. The same could be said for Gale Force, Prowlers, Everfrost, Sunder. You get the idea. Mythics were designed to be fun to play, but not fun to play against, and now it's finally starting to show. Another issue that mythics have is just how stat dense they are. Stridebreaker, for example, requires 4 stats just to be a decent option, whereas before, items were much simpler even without the dash included. If you don't buy a mythic or an equally overstated item at the moment, you are punished severely. A good example of this is Doran's Blade stacking in previous seasons, or rushing ability haste components to spellcast more while losing all-in power. Now whoever completes their mythic, their Blade of the Ruined King, or Kraken Slayer first has an ungodly damage advantage in basically every situation, once again removing from that decision making. Riot has to take into consideration how a new champion can be balanced around an existing item that has a mechanic the champion shouldn't have while they're designing it. They're basically saying here that Aphelios with the dash isn't intended, and the reason that he sits so terribly low in win rate is due to that. Who would have thought? This is another reason why Riot has decided to scrap mythics. Now on to our next topic. Champion power budgets and items. A champion's kit is largely influenced by how strong items, summoner spells, or runes are on them. If an item is too strong on a champion, the champion will have to be nerfed around it, and thus their base kit becomes weaker. Riot has observed, since the mythic item introduction, that completing items and mythics themselves simply overrides a champion's base kit, and it turns into an effect application competition instead of playing your champion for your champion. As a result, they're going to nerf things like Kraken Slayer and Blade of the Ruined King, so we're actually able to enjoy our champions instead of feeling the need to rush these items. This is overall a very positive change. Next topic, item stacking considerations. Riot states that having a mythic item is good for game balance because they can make them really strong without the fear of them being stacked. They'll be drastically nerfing all the previous mythic items that make this cut, and then removing problematic items such as Gale Force. Zhonya's will still be staying in the game as it is necessary. Because of this, most items will be stackable again, so they're nerfing items as a whole. Personally, I haven't really seen much item stacking since about Season 4. It's better 99% of the time to buy a different item, so not really sure where this is coming from, but okay. And now last but not least, the future of items. Riot wants to simplify items, giving all of them a clear purpose to reduce the barrier to entry so League is easier to learn. Having a single unique item that is balanced for all users is the end goal. Where possible, they want items to have a unique effect and a max of 3 stats total, with at least 5 users of each item. They know that this isn't going to work out, so there's going to be some exceptions to this rule. The number of items is cited as a barrier to playing League, and they want to make it easier to traverse this barrier while keeping things that the player base likes. So as a whole, items will be less diverse and champion kits will shine more. They'll have significantly more generic stat profiles. Overall, I think that this post is kind of worrying in tone. Riot is clear in that they are making the game more accessible for new players without considering the current player base. The exact attitude in this last sentence is what made Mythic so polarizing for the community. It's not necessarily a good thing to oversimplify a system like this or introduce unnecessary mechanics. It would seem that we're headed towards a Keystone Rune style of rework to items instead of a redesigning from the ground up. I'm sure some problematic mythic items like Divine Sunder will also remain in the game, even though both fighter and tank players alike really dislike building the item or playing against it. I really do hope that we're reading a little bit too far into this and that the preseason patch is going to be more exciting than what's written here, but this is kind of grim. Anyways, this was Unsung with GameLeap. Make sure to comment down below so we can talk about the article. I'll see you all in the next video.